Now, I'm not rushing to buy more Bitcoin just yet. Not because I'm really bearish, I just think Bitcoin does this thing anyways, and I think that hasn't changed. And I don't think it's over, by the way. I do think there's a longevity element to Bitcoin here. I think people just overthink it. But I do want to see a lot more. I want to see a lot more kind of time in this period. I've found out in previous cycles that I buy sometimes too early. I am still doing a dollar cost average challenge where I'm just buying every single Sunday a little bit, but not my own stable currency monies from the past. So yeah, let's get into why I need to wait a bit longer. And by the way, it has everything to do with time, if you're wondering. Now, is the 4-year cycle in the room with us? Quite possibly, yeah. Now, this is the thing, right? Let's talk about it. The 4-year cycle. It's kind of said on the page here about kind of price cycles, where we're going to be, rough sort of areas. And this kind of resonates a lot with my own analysis in terms of what I'm looking for. You've probably seen my analysis anyways in terms of areas of interest. Time-wise, we've got to look at the time side of it. And I do think, myself included, as I say, we look at the post-halving behavior. We look at how historic boredom phases happen with Bitcoin. It does happen a lot. And I think you've got to be very, very careful of jumping in too early. And I see it all the time in my Discord. I see it all the time in comment section here, all over the place, right? I'm going to buy when it says hits 60,000 or 69,000, whatever. The thing is, we'll hit that number, we'll bounce a little bit, then we'll probably go lower. And we could talk about a lot of this using historical data, monthly time frame, macro trend lines. We've got situations where I am anticipating the Bitcoin bottom to be around 29,000, 37,000 range by October this year. That would be literally, and I said it before in previous videos, anything in and around $45,000 to $35,000 would be a gift. And you shouldn't really try and time bottoms. And I'm not saying time bottoms here. I'm saying pick an area where there's a probable range of genuine interest alongside the world of timing. Consolidations in periods of Bitcoin last a while. I mean, previous cycle, we had, 4 or 5 weeks in and around $18,000 to $15,000. And people were begging for lower. I was like, what are you doing? Just buy it. And luckily I did. So yeah, every single cycle this happens. It will be a period where Bitcoin will do absolutely nothing for a while. You have to be mindful of that. So stick with it. And yeah, you could talk about these bearish kind of vibes, 4-year cycle. It really is to a T, by the way. I mean, absolute credit to this article. It's really, really useful. It's simple. It kind of fits within my thesis of how I do analysis anyways. The rhyme and the October rhyme, we'll come on to that in a minute. If we're going to follow this, October is probably going to be key. But that doesn't mean wait till October. If that price range comes in, well, you should nibble at it. Not financial advice, of course. But to kind of go upon the world of, oh, look at the 4-year cycle malarkey, it kind of was the thing. And I did a video in 2023 talking about this, and it kind of worked out very, very well. The unfortunate thing was we were all expecting one little nibble higher. 150k was quite an obvious level. We got to 126k. It kind of fell apart from there. So yeah, we could talk about how there's confluence between other analysts and stuff like that, and it makes sense. And it has rhymed, unfortunately. And even now I'm getting comments saying, oh, what if we go higher from now? Well, it's going to be very much, I think, very unlikely. But again, we've got more information. This is on Seeking Alpha, talking about how patience is not passivity, if I've said that word right, but dominance over impulse. The dominance is massively important here in terms of where it is. But again, we could talk about historic timings and the bottom maybe in 2026 based off historical timing. It kind of all, it's the thing. And that's the thing. We could talk about fear in the drops and the price moves, and obviously diminishing returns, obviously, yeah, important here. Bitcoin's not going to go mental anymore. Realistically, yeah, you could talk about certain buy points if you bought early. Yeah, cool, fine. But you've got to play the game. You've got to play the game of buy low, sell high, rebuy back low. You've got to play that game to accumulate units. You've got to play the cyclical game that I've made a lot of money in terms of a situation versus, say, the traditional stock market, because that is where it gets ugly. Boredom is right where people quit. And I've seen it all the time. All the time. People just quit. People return when it gets more bullish. It's like people buying gold now for some reason. Oh, I want to buy gold. Why? Why are you buying gold? So yeah, just you've got to stick with it. And this is quite an interesting article as well, talking about certain things. Obviously, this time was different in terms of the consensus around it, in terms of obviously Bitcoin and The altcoin fever and the classic altcoin rally did not happen. So there's situations where we've got to be mindful of that things do change, but the rhythm has always been the same. The 4-year cycle with the Bitcoin and the Bitcoin halving cycle has seemed to work out again. And by the way, if you want more content from me, exclusive content, videos, Discord, course material as well, which is included, you can start from only £6 a month. Very, very cheap. You can get everything pretty much if you want it. Now, in terms of my analysis, it doesn't look great, does it? The volumes of futures, spot volume, it's not where it was. And that's the thing. We can talk about Bitcoin's historic performance. It's been pretty dire. When you compare the stock market, and obviously I've got another channel called Your Money Mate, I talk about my dividend stocks there. Chalk and cheese, like totally different landscape in terms of the returns that we've got over the course of the same period. So yeah, not ideal. There's a lot of liquidations that do happen all the time, but the events are getting smaller and smaller. Then we'll get big ones, small, big ones. That's just how it is. People get greedy, and every single pump, they think it's going to go higher. They get caught out with the leverage. Every single dump is going to go lower. It's going to be like that for a while until people are eventually washed out, which is why we need to talk about time. Because this is where we are right now. And it's not looking great, I know. And we could talk about so many different factors. So obviously the stable currency dominance is still rising, and that's probably going to go much higher, unfortunately. So we need to wait for that. Obviously, we've hit this level here beautifully down in this region. I said in my last video, I'm going to skip this level for buying. I've not bought it. I'm just going to wait and chill and relax because I do think we've got time in our hands here. And this is just me, my opinion. I still hold Bitcoin. I'm still happy to hold a load of units. I do have some off the table and I will buy lower. That's the game, right? I am already going to make a load more units even if I pull the trigger today. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. So even if we do have a bit of a curveball and we go much higher, that's fine. I will still have some returns there. The reality is here, when we look at this on as I say, on the weekly or the monthly time frame, this is the 6 minute level. So let me just remove that Fibonacci there. So this is the overall most obvious cycle low to the cycle high returns, right? And these are just genuine levels of interest in and around the candles within the Fibonacci sequence levels. Obviously, we've hit levels here, sublime. Like we've failed to hit back into this level, which I think we're going to probably go into eventually and then probably roll over. That's just how I look at the market, unfortunately. Now, whether that becomes an area of value for people, I don't know. Will people panic at that point? Probably, yeah. Or will bulls just buy it because they're idiots and they'll buy everything that moves, realistically? But we are realistically in and around the previous all-time high zone for obviously where Bitcoin was. Nothing's really changed yet. It's still in a hunking downtrend. And that's just the most obvious area. The RSI is still fucking bearish as fuck. It's awful, right? But the reality is here, we've got to keep it super simple. What is the dominance doing? Well, that's just dropping. The only reason why this is dropping, by the way, is because altcoins have had a mini bounce, nothing crazy, but stable currency dominance has also risen quite a lot. So that share of stable currencies is taken away from Bitcoin, and therefore it's going to look better, obviously. So as you can see, it's much higher. So yeah, that's why. Nothing crazy, though, in terms of altcoins. It's still looking like a dog's dinner. So yeah, don't worry, not an alt season just yet. But as well, right, let's be honest. We talk about altcoins and we talk about, these and whatever. In my Patreon the other day, I had a question regarding altcoins. When's the time? What do we do? For me, time is just to wait. And it is, even with altcoins. I mean, look at even XRP. We could look at every single altcoin and go, wow, they can go really back into the levels of where the previous pump was because, the interest will eventually happen because a lot of them have emissions and they will slowly bleed. If we're talking about Bitcoin losing another $20,000 here, your altcoins are probably going to go right back to the fucking floor. And it's going to be a total reset. Again, psychologically, that's going to kill you, I think. But people always expecting bullish behavior on any bounce. Oh, we're going to bounce, we're going to go to the moon. You can tell who the experienced people are in the market and tell who are not. And that's just, well, there's two sides of that story, actually, I'll be honest. You got people that want just views and engagement, and you got people that just are genuinely a shit. But retail fatigue is a thing. Social media quieting down is a thing. And I talk about my social media, right? I rebranded my X account. You probably noticed that I go by my name now, and I talk about my personal finance stuff, like dividends, and obviously Bitcoin as well. So I cover both now. My stock market stuff gets way more views now than the world of crypto. That's just probably because there's interest is there. Social media fatigue is here. You can see it in the comments. Comment if you're still here. Let me know, because that's just the thing. People are just waiting. It's fine. We need to learn. but you also need to stay, if that makes sense, because no one gets rich by just vanishing. And that's the thing. And I talk about it in every single point I can. Genuinely what happens is, and this is what happens, right? That the people who come back are always at these tops, these areas, right? And they think they're good because everything's going up. It's easy mode, especially for Bitcoin. It was easy mode for a while. But people will then leave in these periods now. They'll fuck off, right? And then what will happen is when we do bottom, wherever we do bottom, there'll be a justification much higher from that low. It's my trigger to come back into this market. That's not how it works. Realistically, you will lose. So when we talk about 4-year cycles, when we talk about all this sort of area, it'll be probably in 2027, people will return to the market after a potential bounce where we've probably done about 80 to 100% gains, maybe even higher. Because if we are looking at October and we are looking at previous levels of like even here, where we talk about where we bottomed in October in this cycle, right, which is important, look, I mentioned it before, consolidation zones of Bitcoin is important because if we're talking about, say, let me just go time date from this point, this drop here, right, down to here, when we're talking about like, give us a range, give or take, right? So if we're talking rough numbers, 196 days between 24K at the peak and the low of 15K. That's a lot of time to get some good orders, right? Obviously, optimum orders are in around here, but that was a 56-day period where we were in and around 16K, 17K. That's a long time, by the way, just saying, to buy stuff, to do things, to think, fucking hell, that's quite cheap. But people weren't interested because what happened was people were interested up here when it went much higher. So we know what happens. People will miss off on moves like this, 200% moves, and they'll enter here. And that's generally what people do. It's fucking mind-blowing. So yeah, we could talk about October. What we're going to do? Well, are we going to gradually trickle down into October and have a consolidation zone? I tell you what, if we do and we're at low levels, I'll be screaming buy Bitcoin. Every single video we buy Bitcoin now. Probably. But I will say this, right? And let's talk about reflections a little bit. I've said it before, even though just what I've said now, buy Bitcoin now, that's fine. But you will buy because of boredom, not because of fear. You'll buy because you're always going to wait for it. You don't want to miss out. History rhymes. You feel like, ooh, but there's nothing wrong with hitting a level and dollar cost averaging slowly into it, just gradually just nibbling at it and just build a position over time. And then if you do have stablecoins, you just go higher and faster and whatever when we get towards better levels, right? You don't have to go all in. You don't have to just jump in on one button click. But what my point is, people jump in far too early. Like people will look at this as an amazing order. I don't think it is. I think it's all right. Don't get me wrong. It's better than what it was 100 plus thousand, obviously. I mean, yeah, it's a nice reduction on the top. But ultimately, you only get that if you sold the top, obviously. That is not the price that you're paying for it. If, like me, I sold around 110, 108,000 on my last sale and I'd had 118 on one of my sales as well, yeah, I've got like a 35 to 40% correctional kind of level here. Take off tax with that. Yeah, it's optimum. It's all right. Don't get me wrong, but could be better. And that's what I want. Better. But I think for me, below 50K, I'll start getting excited. But if you're not yet done so, please do like the video, subscribe, and obviously watch this video because I think this one is quite telling, actually, to be honest. If you've not yet seen it, it's a good one.